right, good morning. Morning, friends and family. Come on in. Come on in. My sister J Love has got the jam playing, every woman. Actually, we're everybody, right? We're every woman, every man. We celebrating Women's History Month this month, though. All right, so we gonna get it live today. So come on in, get your tea, get your coffee, wherever you are. Just so grateful for you being here. This is Transforming Love Community, where we transform lives through love, through truth, through passion, through truth, all those things through balance. And we'll be talking about that today. So come on in. We're just so grateful. You could be anywhere this morning, but you're here with us. And so we just want you to know we're grateful for that. So whether you're coming in through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, maybe you might even look at the recording a little bit later. We just welcome you to the space. Everybody's at home here, right? This is Transforming Love Community. We've been doing this for 27 years, and we ain't stopping now. Ain't no stopping us now. That makes me think of another song. So welcome to the space. Come on in. Much love and gratitude to wherever Rev is. And I hope wherever you are, you're staying, I hope she's staying well and you're staying well too and staying dry. I know it was raining and storming in Detroit, and same was happening here in Atlanta. We're having tornado warnings and storm warnings, and so I always get a little nervous about my internet service when it's storming. But we're here today, and God has worked everything out. It's a little dark outside, but the sun is still shining. So welcome to the space. Knowing that wherever you are is holy ground. I know wherever you are right now is holy ground. And I affirm the same for Rev. I just love her and honor her, and so much gratitude for her. I just want to start off. I want to thank you all. You know, when I talk about this being Transforming Love Community, it is certainly a community of love and a community that can hold space for each other. And Eric and I certainly want to thank you all for your love and support and your prayers and everything. I've had a couple of losses in the family that you all know about in a span of 3 weeks in Erica's family, and by extension, my family as well, our family. And so they didn't go unnoticed. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Rev. Thank you to Reverend Bonnie, who oftentimes leads this bereavement ministry and reaches out and makes calls. And thank you for the entire family. We certainly are upheld by your prayers and support, and we still feel it. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the ministry team. You know, everybody who contributes to TLC. We got your messages too as well, but if it wasn't for you, TLC would not be. Reverend Shahira cannot do this alone. So thank you for your contributions and for your voice and for your time and your talents and all that. And so welcome to the space. I know people are still coming in. And while they're coming in, I want us to take a moment to really send out prayers. Just hold space for our country, hold space for our world. There's so much going on. We know that there's so much going on. We just need to certainly continue to hold space, continue to pray, continue to take action, continue to do all those things that we're called to do. But I want us to take a moment to hold space right now. You know, even this morning, there was a fire in Macedonia. I don't know if you heard about it in the early morning hours. There's a fire that killed 51 people. Some people might say, well, you know, that's over there. That's not here. But this is a global community where we are connected with everyone around the world. This message is a universal message. So until we get to the point where we understand their pain is our pain, their grief is our grief, all that is connected. So 51 people perished, and maybe more. That's what I read earlier this morning in Macedonia. Now, here's an interesting thing. The club was called the Pulse as well. And I just found it interesting because in 2016, there was a shooting at the Pulse Club, a Pulse club called Pulse in Orlando, where 49 people were shot and killed. And so, you know, thought about that, and certainly thinking about the names of the club. Let's keep our pulse on compassion. Let's keep our pulse on humanity, right? And keep our pulse on empathy and sending prayers and knowing that we're connected with suffering that's happening anywhere around the world. So let's continue to pray for them. And and we've got so much going on. We want to pray for people who want to continue to who need to continue to use their free speech. We're not being allowed to do that. All the changes we see going on in the world, we just, right now we're in this safe space, but we hold a space for that and for them as well. People being let go of jobs and all type of things that's happening in people's lives, and so we want to just hold that. I want to hold a special space for the family, for Caleb Wilson, the soul of Caleb Wilson and his family. Many of you all know Caleb Wilson or heard of the name Caleb Wilson. He was the young man who was killed in a fraternity incident at Southern University, pledging a fraternity, and certainly it certainly hit me particularly in a certain way, being a member of a fraternity myself. And we know that this could have happened in any fraternity, any sorority. So we're not going to demean any particular fraternity or sorority. But I want us to hold space for that, and I want us to hopefully learn something from it, and hope everyone listening can learn something from it, and we can encourage other people to learn something from it. Although it's such a sad event, but I want us all to interrogate, right? Interrogate what our requirements are. What are our requirements for membership into these so-called elite organizations? I want us to think about what do we require? And I want us to consider too how internalized oppression can cause us to recreate sometimes slave rituals just to indoctrinate people into a sense of belonging. We really have to look at that. We really have to look at that. And then you know what? It ain't just fraternities and sororities that makes you jump through hoops sometimes. When you talk about hazing churches can haze folk to be a member. Universities can haze folk to go there. Elite academic institutions can haze folks to be a part of that. Our jobs can haze us and make us go through hoops just to be a part or just to work there. You know what I mean? These things we have to do, but particularly for this, which is just a senseless crime. And here we lost a young Black brother who had so much promise and so much potential. So we need to look at what our requirements are and what we're doing to elicit belonging into these organizations. And are we recreating atrocities and rituals from a standpoint of internalized oppression? We need to really interrogate that. And so I'm just going to leave it right there. I'm going to leave it right there. But we have to ask ourselves what we require. And so the question for me when this comes out, after being in a fraternity for over 40 years, the question comes up for me is not what is required to be in a fraternity or sorority, elite organization. The question for me now is, what does God require? And that's the question for you. What does God require? And Micah 6:8 says, what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That's it. To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That is the requirement. That is the divine requirement. So let's keep that in mind, and let's keep that at the forefront. Let's keep that at the forefront. And so I'll say, that's all I'll say about that. But I want us to hold space for that family who must be going just through an immense amount of grief, and certainly for the soul of that young man, and for even the fraternity members who are going to be prosecuted and arrested. While it's tragic, we hold space for them too. As hard as that may be, sometimes we need to do that because that's what grace and mercy requires as well. So just wanted to say that. Didn't want hate to start off on that note. We're still going to celebrate, but we need to hold both of those things, family. So let's talk about some announcements. When you talk about what does God require, TLC knows what God requires, and so what we do, everything we do, is to transform lives. Everything we do is about healing. Everything we do is about evolving. And so let's look at our announcements. As you know, tomorrow is Monday. You know what we do on Monday? We be soaking on Monday with Reverend Danny Stillwell. So you see the prayer line number that's up. You also you can go to the website, get all the information. But listen, man, this is probably no greater time to create community like that through the artistic measure of poetry and music and prose and all those things. And no one does that better than Reverend Danny. So we thank her for her consistent service in that area. So join us tomorrow on Monday for that. All right. Then our theme for this week, our theme this week is reclaiming. We are reclaiming some stuff. We're reclaiming a lot. Reclaiming means to do again. We already claimed it. We're going to keep reclaiming. You have to do it over and over and over. And so, of course, I'll give the message today. And next week, we have the dynamic Dr. Rose Moten. And then we have the amazing Sherry Johnson Crawley coming up on the last weekend of Sunday. But next week is Dr. Rose Moten, where her message is awake and aligned. Awake and aligned. Reclaiming your power through conscious living, a high vibration energy. And that's where we need to stay. That's where we need to stay. That's going to be just a timely and a powerful message because, let's be real. Many of us in our humanness, we have a challenge sometimes in maintaining that energy when we're surrounded by what we're surrounded by. When we see what we see, when we hear what we hear. And so the intent is to stay in high vibrational energy and knowing that we can't do that alone, right? We can't do that alone. We can't do that in isolation. So we do it with each other. So join us next week. Join us next week for Dr. Rose Moten's message, Awake and Aligned. And here's the last message for today. Rev is always doing Rev does. Rev be revving. So on March 29th, right, she's going to have a workshop and quantum leaping into abundance. Now, before we play a little promotional message for it, I want you to know that March 25th is the last day to register. It's going to be held on March 29th from 11 to 1. March 25th is the last day to register. Okay. And you can choose your own tuition. So do what your heart leads you to do. Do what your heart leads you to do, right? Your tuition will come from your intuition. So pay whatever. When you come in, pay whatever and come on and don't miss this message next Sunday. And I think we have a special promotional message for that event on the 29th.
Greetings, friends. Join Dr. Shahira Stevens, CEO and founder of Transforming Love Community, for a Zoom webinar event titled Quantum Leaping into Abundance. Our souls are calling us now to recognize that we are packets of light, endowed with divine abilities to create, heal, manifest, and live a fulfilled life. The crazy in this world is intentional, so we need to intentionally tap into the higher dimensions and fasten ourselves to the visions chosen by our souls. Saturday, March 29th, 2025. Time 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The price: choose your own tuition. Register now. On March 25th, 2025, you will receive an email with the Zoom event details, so be sure to double-check your email address before sending. Register at www.transforminglovecommunity.com. Registration closes March 25th, 2025.
All right. I like to say if the crazy is intentional, then we have to be intentional about staying in high vibration. We have to be intentional about growing. We have to be intentional about leaping and acting and staying in high vibration. So join us March 29th for that. Well, that concludes our announcement. So let's let's go into the message today. And I just want to be still for a minute. And as we all breathe together, and certainly I will center myself. And I'll ask you to join me as I center myself, knowing that God has anointed me for this message. God has anointed me for his and her service. That we just quiet ourselves right now and surrender. Surrender to this moment. And wherever we are, regardless of the miles that separate us, regardless of this virtual space, we are connected. Energy makes that so. We are all connected. And so we feel that right now. We set our intent to open ourselves for this message, to let go of all preconceptions, all certainties, all knowing, just open ourselves up to some new information, something that'll take us a little higher in our vibration. And so we thank you. We thank you. We thank you, Mother, Father, God, for this opportunity. Thank you for this space. We thank you for Transforming Love Community and everyone who's come in, out of the doors. We thank you for Reverend Shahir. We thank you for everybody on the ministerial staff. We thank you for everyone who's here in this space right here and right now. We just breathe into gratitude right now. We block out all that's happening outside. We bring our attention and focus right here and right now. And we keep our focus on you, Spirit. And so for me, I just thank you, and I pray that the words of my mouth, meditations of my heart, this message be acceptable in this side of the universe. The all-knowing God, the Creator God, the Most High God. That someone will leave this space a little higher than they were when they came in. So I just thank you for that opportunity. I don't have to do this. I get to do this for you, God. So I give you thanks. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And so it is. Let's move into this message, fam. It is the month of March. It is the month of March in the unity tradition. This is the month of strength. It also is, and you're talking about strength appropriately, it is the Women's History Month as well. And so, I want to say, not only is it Women's History Month in the month of March, and we continue beyond March. Transforming Love knows we don't confine anything to a month, but we certainly recognize it this month, recognize women's history and the contribution of women and just the amazingness of our sisters. And I want to especially recognize that today. And so we talk about the balanced woman, right? And so I definitely was thinking about my mother as we talk about the balanced woman. And certainly March 16th is a special day for me. It's a special day for my brother. It's a special day for my parents. They got married on March 16th, 1957. Jay, if you can bring that picture up, it is my parents' 68th wedding anniversary. And look at that. Look at those beautiful people right there. And look at Jay put that frame around that picture. It is their 68th wedding anniversary. 68 years. And while I certainly celebrate my parents equally, I want to give some honor to my mother today, just because it is Women's History Month, and I want to recognize the balanced woman that she was. I certainly recognize my dad too. I had an opportunity to spend 43 years with my mother, 17 years with my father, and certainly I spent more years with my mother. But I celebrate them and honor them just the same, and I also honor the fact that my dad was becoming more balanced. He was becoming a more balanced human being. And I believe that was due to the space that my mother held for him as well. And so he was becoming more balanced at age 59 when he passed away and from his untimely death in 1982. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. And I just want to talk about my mother today because she was a balanced woman. Anyone who knows her will tell you that she was a balanced woman, and certainly she held the balance in the household. And I don't want to forget that my mother was a Libra. My mother was a Libra. So you have the scales of balance. So she certainly represented that well. So happy anniversary to my mom and dad. I want to dedicate this message to them, and certainly to her, as I think about the balanced woman, right? And I think about the woman's wisdom, and I think about the woman's wisdom that we need to be balanced, and we need to really save this earth and save this planet. So for those that have ears to hear, eyes to see, ultimately we are talking about energies. We're talking about energies, right? And for practical purposes, you'll hear us talking about male and female. You hear me talking about men and women, but this is energy that we all have. But we're going to talk about it in terms of men and women today, and particularly, I want to focus on Black and Indigenous women, and there's a reason for that. I don't I don't embrace or adopt the notion that they are more valuable, they have more inherent worth than women who not are not Black and Indigenous, but they need special recognition. Why? And they need special honor. Why? Because Black and Indigenous women can neither be shielded by their race or their gender. They can neither be shielded by either, so they can't take advantage oftentimes of their race or their gender. And so they have had to navigate things in a different way than other people have. They have had to navigate things differently than my white sisters have. And I recognize the achievements and struggles and resistance and wisdom by all women, but I also recognize that much of the wisdom that is generated that is generated and put forth by my white sisters is garnered from Black and Indigenous wisdom. And they often have the privilege of co-opting that wisdom and then reproducing it and taking advantage of the wealth and the popularity that comes from it. That is just the truth. And so this wisdom is ancient wisdom. And I think it is found in Black and Indigenous women. That's where it's first found. And then it spreads to everybody. And so I want to recognize that, and I want to say that today specifically, and make sure I give voice to that and name that today. And I certainly, when I talk about particularly when I talk about my Black sisters, I also want to give recognition to my more melanated Black sisters who face oftentimes an additional a challenge within their own race, within their own race. And so I think energy and wisdom has to come from that space, because they have to navigate a lot. And oftentimes those who have suffered the most are ones who can navigate the best. They can navigate the best because they've had to do that. So I want to start this message off by saying that. But this energy we're talking about, everyone has it, and it's tapping into that energy. It's tapping into those energies that can rebalance us. So let's see what the ancient wisdom and the Bible and scriptures and all that say about it. Because I want to read something from Proverbs 11:1. And Jay, if we can put that up, it says Proverbs 11 says, "A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight." It's her delight, is its delight. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord. So when things are not balanced, when things are not fair, when things are unequitable, what we see is it's an abomination to the Lord. It is not pleasing to the universe. It is not pleasing to humanity. It is not pleasing to God. It is just not. It is a false balance. So we see God. Our God is a God of balance. Our God is a God of balance. Our most high God, creator, is a God who celebrates balance. And I want to read a scripture that you're very familiar with, but it really speaks to balance, found in Genesis 1:27. From the very beginning, God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. So you sense the balance right there. Male and female, he created them from the very beginning. That's found in Genesis 1:27. But not only can you find this in the Bible, not only can you find it in Christian teaching, you can find it in any teaching. But I want to talk about something that the Quran talks about, this idea of the divine law of balance as well. As for the sky, he raised it high and set the balance. The Quranic verse 55:7 says that, right? And so based on that verse, what it means is God created the whole universe on a divine law of balance. And without this balance, there'd be no harmonization installed between the innumerable stars. There'd be no balance between the planets. There'd be no balance in the galaxies. It would be no balance among the numerous creatures and the planets in space, the creatures and all the moving things. There would be no balance. So the creatures existing in air and water on land, that have been around for a billion years because of this divine balance, the divine balance. And the interesting thing is, fam, is in the case of the slightest imbalance. See, this is how sovereign, this is how all-knowing God is. The slightest imbalance of any kind, that life could become extinct with the slightest imbalance. And so that's one reason we're talking about this message today, because we feel the imbalance and we who are light workers want to save the planet. We need to save the planet. We need to stand up for humanity, because when there's a balance, there's a threat to humanity. When there's imbalance. The Quran goes on to say he created the heavens and the earth for a purpose. He wraps the night around the day, wraps the day around the night. He has subjected the sun and the moon, each orbiting for its appointed term. He is truly the Almighty, the most forgiving. There is a balance. There is a balance, right? The seven heavens, including the solar and the stellar systems, the alternation of day and nights, that have been created by God for a purpose, well planned and perfectly balanced. And all these creations, fam, all these creations are connected by natural and universal laws that belong to the divine law of balance. And because of this, that's how we can compute days and times and seasons and all that, and years. And the innumerable, it says the innumerable creatures found on the earth are staying alive only because the sun and moon have been accurately and precisely placed at distances from the earth. And any increase or decrease in the distance is made in right measure. It's in particular order. Otherwise, if that distance from the earth increase or decrease randomly, no one could possibly survive on earth. You see the just greatness, the amazingness of the universe, that everything is balanced. The planets are balanced. The sun is balanced. The gravity holds the planets in place. All that. And so in conclusion, fam, it is the divine law of balance that is the fundamental law of God. It is the fundamental balance. And the scientific knowledge, oftentimes we need to shift from this knowledge that's guided by a materialistic philosophy, because it's finding its limitations. Mm-hmm. The materialistic philosophy is finding its limitations. Mm-hmm. For the search of scientific truth, we need to overcome this philosophical obstacle and unite with the ocean of spirituality. I'll say that again. For the search of this scientific truth, we need to overcome this philosophical obstacle, materialism, and unite with the ocean of spirituality. There's an ocean of spirituality that we all dwell in, regardless of where we are, regardless of what religion is in. But we see that balance is being thrown off, or at least attempted to be thrown off. And balance is everything. Balance is everything, fam. Everything exists in its equal and opposite, right? You heard of Newton's third law, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You hear about spirituality, you hear about yin and yang in the practical sense. You hear about male and female, masculine and feminine, hot and cold. In the universe, you hear about matter and antimatter. I mean, balance is everything. And when you have an imbalance, it affects everything. Janice, can you bring up that slide again that talks about balance or imbalance? That when something is balanced, imbalances in the economy, the imbalances of everywhere is causes an imbalance in our relationships with each other and our relationships with the world. So as we change, our world changes, right? So we're imbalanced. The planet is going to be imbalanced. Do you know right now, speaking of the planet, fam, because of global warming, as the glaciers melt, the water rises, but the water is congregating or is gathering around the equator, which is disturbing the balance of the planet. And scientists and researchers predict that the planet will become more wobbly and it'll wobble more off its axis because of these man-made things, because of the ozone layer, the deterioration of the ozone layer, because of global warming, because of all of that. All that is man-made things. And so our planet is beginning to wobble, right? And so we have to make sure we don't wobble inside, that we balance ourselves, right? And focus on rebalancing ourselves, and keep balancing. And so if we're out of balance, and all things are affected because of that. Because everything comes from that. Fairness comes from balance. Equity comes from balance. Love comes from being balanced. Compassion comes from being balanced. Empathy comes from being balanced. And so, fam, I know that we are experiencing and feeling an imbalance that we're experiencing at this present time. And I certainly am of the mindset of James Baldwin, who James Baldwin always believed that if you love something enough, and you believe in what it can be, that sometimes you have to correct it. And sometimes that might come up as criticism, but you have to correct it, because if we don't name it, if we don't give voice to it, it goes hidden. So when I talk about these statistics, it's not a critical. It's saying this is what we need to correct to be balanced again. So when I talk about man-made extreme, family, I talk about the U.S., the place where we live right now. 1.87% of the Earth's total land surface. The Earth's total land surface, that we here in the United States only make up 1.87%. Right? Let's move from the land surface and just talk about the population. As of this month, we're 4.22% of the world's population. Of the world, 4.22% of the world's population. And I tell you, Eric and I just had a chance to travel to different places. We went to Cartagena, we went to Colombia, I went to New York. I went to New York recently, but particularly when you go out of the country, you get a chance to see different perspectives, right? You get a chance to see different cultures, learn different people. And if you don't get out of your space, you don't see how small you can really be and how big the world is. So we're only 4.22% of the world's population, but we consume 25% of the world's resources. So a quarter of the world's resources. And we were estimated to contribute 30% of the world's waste. That's an imbalance, man. That is an imbalance. That is definitely an imbalance. And so those are some of the things that need to be corrected, because as long as we have the imbalance, we won't have fairness and equity. We don't have that. And certainly we know it is man-made. Man's insecurities and understanding and misuses of power create the imbalance of well. And so let's move and talk about the impact that we can have, because we humans have a great impact on our planet, more than we realize, right? And this places all of us, you and me, in a greater responsibility for the future of this planet. We have responsibility for the future of this planet, for future generations coming behind us. So whether it's the universe, whether it's the earth, or whether it's our relationships, we need to come back to the middle. It is necessary for us to come back to the middle, because when we live in extremes, one extreme or another, we are not balanced. We need to come back to the middle. I love reading scriptures from the Bible. I love seeing what the prophets have to say, regardless of the faith tradition they come from. But I want to read about this one prophetess I just love. When you talk about coming back to the middle, that's the prophetess India Ari. To me, that's the prophetess India Ari, and she talks about coming back to the middle. And I took a few words from her, a few lyrics from her song, "Come Back to the Middle," and she says this. At the beginning of her song, she's talking about a young woman, and she says she's 25, spent over half her life so afraid to speak her mind. It's such a shame, because what a brilliant mind she has. Now she's been introduced to confidence, and she doesn't see that she's now bordering on arrogance. When will she learn to come back to the middle? He is a young black man growing up without his father, and now now it falls into his hands to protect his mother. Because if he doesn't, who will? His older brother lives in fear of everything, especially trying to fill his father's shoes. And respectively, they go to these extremes of masculine and feminine, chasing dreams, but they keep falling because they don't know no balance. They don't know no balance. When will they learn to come back to the middle? When will we learn, fam, to come back to the middle? And it is my belief that the wisdom of women, the wisdom of our mothers, the wisdom of balanced women can bring us back to the middle, but we're constantly trying to shut that voice out. We're constantly trying to oppress that voice because the woman's voice can bring us back to the middle. And oftentimes that is the roots and imbalances in our relationship. That is the roots and the imbalances of our relationship because, let's talk about in the practical sense that we are trained, sometimes men are trained for this imbalance. And I want to talk about just some practical ways in our families, particularly early on, that we can socialize people into imbalance. Do you know that when babies are born, gendered behaviors, behaviors that we assign to boys and girls and women and men, male, female, masculine, feminine, do you know that those are absent in babies? Those gendered behaviors are absent in babies. We find that babies, boys or girls, are equally emotional, equally expressive, equally dependent, equally. In fact, it is found that baby boys act more in line with what we consider feminine. Boys at that, baby boys. Everything we can nurturing, crying, all that we consider to be feminine, boys exhibit that even more than girls, oftentimes as babies. And so, but what happens is that studies have shown and research has shown that when groups were shown babies who were crying, most people assumed that the girls were crying, the little baby girls were crying because they were scared, and the little boy babies were crying because they were angry. That was their perception. The girls are scared and the boys are angry. Therefore, the girls were nurtured more because they were scared. And the boys were nurtured less because they were angry. Do you see what I'm getting at, fam? Do you see how we're creating an imbalance? The boys were nurtured less, right? And so they grew up with less nurturing, with less touching, with less hugging, because they were expected to overcome that and not exhibit those behaviors. And so even as little babies and little toddlers, even in the boys at early age, the boys were emphasized, achievement and competition was emphasized in the boys. And so you're setting the stage. You're setting the stage for domination. You're setting the stage for competition. You're setting the stage for capitalism. You're setting the stage for it. Because boys are taught to suppress all those while girls are nurtured for it. And so you grew up with a generation of teenage boys and generation of men who can't even touch their emotions, or don't even know what they're feeling. They're creating an imbalance, and the imbalance is beginning with them. And as I said, man's insecurities and misunderstandings now of the misuse of power, because he's indoctrinated into power that he's supposed to be dominant, causes him to use violence to maintain this idea of supremacy. Uses violence to maintain it, to maintain his power, to maintain his value. But it really comes from a sense of insecurity and a sense of powerlessness. That's where it comes from. But nevertheless, it is put out to maintain his supremacy. And see, this puts women in a precarious situation. In fact, it puts them in danger, because as they are often subjected to all manners of violence in man's pursuit of his power and his pursuit of his dominance. And let me give you another practical example. Let's talk about how boys are socialized again. Let's talk about intimacy. We want to talk about relationships. Let's talk about intimacy and sex, right? And so if a young man, talking about imbalances now, particularly in intimate relationships, If a young man, if a boy is taught and always asked by his dad or by his peers, did you get some, I'm not going to say the word, did you get some yet? Did you get the P word yet? Did you get that yet? If young boys are always asking each other when they go out on a date, and when they know they go out on a date with a young lady for the first time, did you hit that? Did you get it yet? Did you do all that? The message becomes that it's a rite of passage for manhood to have sex. That it is interpreted as a rite of passage, that you must do that in order to become a man, because it's demanded of you by other men. This creates an imbalance, because now women become objectified and become dispensable in his search for value, in his search for worth, in his search for the admiration of other men. She becomes objectified and dispensable. So he never learns how to make love. He knows how to have sex, but he doesn't know how to make love, because he doesn't know what love is. He doesn't even know how to love himself. So how can he make love if he's so disconnected from love? Because sex and intimacy are two different things. In fact, he doesn't even recognize that he's divorced from half of himself. And so even if he goes ahead and gets married, it's just a matter of time before he's divorced, because he's already divorced from himself. He's already divorced from his feelings. He's already divorced from his longings. He's already divorced from that, because he's been socialized into that. And he's been taught and trained that being a man, that's what being a man is. It creates an imbalance. And oftentimes, women pay the ultimate price. Women pay the ultimate price. If a young boy and a man learns about sex from his peers and pornography, then all he learns is that sex is about domination. Sex is about control. Sex is about power. That's all he learns. And this creates an imbalance, and we wonder why our relationships are why they are. Because there's just an imbalance. And that's just one practical way we can look at that. And then women have to pay the ultimate price, and often pay the ultimate price. And men oftentimes don't even realize that they're paying a price, because they're so disconnected from themselves. They feel the tension, that don't know how to give voice to it. And so we just continue to man up. We continue to numb our feelings with alcohol and drugs and all those other things, and don't get help until, but the balance doesn't come until you're able to change your lens. I will tell you, for me, the balance didn't come into my life until I started listening to sisters, until I started reading literature from women, from feminist literature, from Black women, feminists first, until I started doing that. And I realized how imbalanced I was, and all the harm I was causing, because I was imbalanced. Because I was imbalanced, all the pain I was feeling. My liberation comes from being balanced. My liberation comes from embracing women's wisdom, women's truth, women's lived experience. My balance comes from that, because I realize I am the masculine and the feminine, that it's all inside, that it's all in me, that I don't have to suppress one, that I suppressed one for years, and everybody suffered. I suffered, and everyone in my space, intimate space, suffered as well, particularly in my dating and married life, my prior married life. So I'm telling you, the imbalance causes, so we need to be balanced, because imbalance is destructive. It is destruction of our relationships. It is ultimately the destruction of our planet. So when men tip the scales, you saw those scales, when men tip the scales, then women have to tip it back. Women have to tip it back. And we're seeing that now everywhere in society. Women are tipping those scales back. They're demanding that those scales be tipped back. Women have to do that. The balance of the feminine must bring us back to the middle. It is a saving grace for the planet. For the planet. Let me say what Kofi Annan said, who was the former Secretary UN of the United Nations. He said gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It's a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, right? Reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. He says, he talks more about that. He said women are a part of that, not only a part, but also take the lead on that. You know, we wouldn't have so many wars. We wouldn't have so much competition. We wouldn't have so much fighting. We wouldn't have much manning up. We wouldn't have so much acquiescence to power that we see now with these problems, these issues of people wanting proximity to power. We wouldn't see that if we just heeded the wisdom of virtuous women, of virtual balance, when we wouldn't see that. And why women, wisdom is born out of the lived experience of women. And that's why I'll say again and again that those who have suffered the most have learned how to navigate the best. You know, when you have to navigate your experience by those who are trying to oppress you, then you actually begin to know them better than they know themselves. You know, the people who were enslaved knew master better than he knew himself because they had to navigate their lived experience around it. Right? You have to navigate that. And that's why I say Black and Indigenous women who neither can take advantage of race or gender, they know. Their lived experience presents a knowing, produces a knowing of how to navigate, how to heal, and how to lead us to healing, how to lead us to truth. Because they know how to navigate all of that. This is why transformation, you know that scripture, it says the last will become first, the first will become last. Well, I don't like to talk about last and first. I don't say women are last. I don't say anybody's last, but you get the idea. The idea is transformation must come from the bottom to the top. See, you can't convince those who would create systems and create actions and behaviors and policies to oppress you. You can't convince them to not do that. You can't, no matter of going and trying to convince them. They are who they are. But transformation comes from the bottom up. You can begin to, as you embrace your power, you begin to take their power away. Yes, we will see more tension right there. This is because one is trying to hold on and one is embracing and empowered to know who they are and know who their power are. So transformation has to come from the top. It is the oppressed who can transform the rest of the oppressed and the oppressor. And the oppressor. So it has to come from there. It has to come from there. That's why I credit my sisters. That's why I embrace my sisters. And you know what? When you're a man who knows who he is, that doesn't take nothing away from you. That takes nothing away from me. You see, in this idea of competition, we believe that we have to one up one another, that men have to one up women and women have to one up men. You know what I mean? But no. When you know who you are, and when you know you are all of that, you know thyself. So where there's an imbalance of toxic male energy intent on dominating and controlling, it is the wisdom of Black and Indigenous women who can restore balance and bring us back to the middle. This is what we need to come back to the middle. But beware. We have to beware. This won't stop us. Beware, fam, that whenever folks, in this sense we use women, whenever women begin to gain a sense of equity or a semblance of equity or begin to embrace their power, their value, and their worth, the ones who oppress them will always cry foul. They will cry foul because the idea is that if the scales are being balanced, now the ones who benefited and privileged from the oppression and from the power now perceive that as these people here begin to gain power and gain who they are, they call themselves oppressed now. They say that we're being oppressed, as if equity is causing oppression for them because they're so used to being up here. So you have to be aware of that, but that won't stop us. That won't stop you. I'm just telling you what's happening and what's going to happen. You know, so whenever the oppressed begin to gain autonomy, you know, then the oppressor will cry foul as if he or she is being oppressed. But you know, there's just a history, y'all. There's a history of women. You know, it's been suppressed. You know, you have to read. You have to search for it because sometimes it's not given to you. Right? You know, and that's why books are being banned. That's why all this, but you can search for it. You have to search for the knowledge. There's a history of women who have resisted. Right? a history of women who have resisted. You know, in the Bible, there's just numerous women that many of us have never heard about. Spent our whole lives in church, spent our whole lives sitting on the pew. Never heard about these women. Never heard about Sarah and Rebecca and Rachel and Hannah. Never heard about them, who all experienced infertility, sorrow, and hardship, and overcame all manners of social challenges and found strength in their faith and loyalty. They don't hear about Deborah, who was a judge and a prophetess who led the Israelites in battle. They don't hear about Esther, who risked her life to save her people. They don't hear about Rahab, who's a sex worker who protected Israeli spies and became an ancestor of Jesus. They don't hear about Mary, the mother of Jesus. We don't hear about that, who was available for the prophecy, who had to flee to Egypt and witness the crucifixion of her son. We don't hear about those women. We don't hear, but you know, there's women who are not in the Bible too. There's women who's not in the Bible. There's Harriet Tubman. There's Sojourner Truth. There's Fannie Lou Hamer. There's Angela Davis. There's Assata Shakur. There's Toni Morrison. There's Alice Walker. There's Shirley Chisholm. There's Nikki Giovanni. And let's come to current times. There's Jasmine Crockett. There's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's Rashida Tlaib. There's Ayanna Pressley. There's Ilhan Omar. There's Kamala Harris. We don't hear about all that because that's suppressed. But it's being suppressed no longer because they are knowing who they are and demanding equity and demanding balance. And God will bring balance back. But we don't even have to look that far, fam, because we got it in our own house, in our own backyard. We got Shahira Stevens. We got Sherry Johnson Crawley. We have Pat Johnson. We have, rest in peace, we have Dr. Rose Moulton. We have Erica Parks Murray. We have Dr. Kalima Johnson. We have Reverend Danny, Reverend Tia, Reverend Bonnie, Reverend Nicole Miller, Reverend Linnell, rest in peace. We have all those. We have all of those who are bringing balance back. And every woman I named is a balanced woman, a virtuous woman who's bringing balance back. What we men have to do, we have to surrender. We have to surrender to the truth. We have to give up that game because we've been socialized into something that's kept us all oppressed. And so those are the women that can bring balance back. They have the wisdom of the middle. Not this extreme, but to bring us back to the middle. And they not only bring Transforming Love Community back to the middle, they have the power to bring the planet back to the middle, to bring Earth back to the middle. Because their energy will proceed wherever they go, will proceed to others who take heed of their energy and their wisdom. They affect everybody in every space they go into. And so we need to bring balance back. But you know what? I like the story of Mary Magdalene too. I didn't mention her initially for a reason, and I wanted to save her because I just love the story of Mary Magdalene. She witnessed Jesus' balanced life and witnessed his death because you know Jesus balanced, right? And you talking about balance? Jesus balanced the life and death. He balanced the human and divine. Fully human and fully divine. He knew how to balance that. And you know what? She was the first to witness that. She was the first to witness that. But you know, if you listen to the stories that have historically been told about Mary Magdalene, many men want to concentrate on her past. They want to concentrate on her sexuality. They want to talk about who she was. They want to call her a prostitute. They want to do all that. They would rather focus on her sexuality than the fact that she was the first person to witness the resurrected Christ. She was the first person to become the evangelist. She was the first person to spread the gospel. And I like her because she was probably grieving the most, fam. She grieved the crucifixion of her brother Yeshua. She grieved it. She was the first to walk to the tomb and roll away the stone. She was grieving. And imagine as she rolled that stone away and she didn't see the body and she saw the two angels, then she heard a voice. Then she heard a voice in the midst of her grief. And then she saw for herself. She was the first to see. Jesus the Christ was revealed divine truth to her first. To her first. And you know what? As Proverbs 30:11 says, Janice, we can play, maybe put that song on low. I'm every woman anymore, because you know what happened in that moment to Mary Magdalene is what I read in Proverbs 31, that he turned her wailing and her crying into dancing. And that's what Christ will do. He'll turn your wailing into dancing. You know why she was dancing? Because he wasn't in the grave no more. Because he still lived. And so everybody who's grieving right now, everyone who's grieving, I want to tell you that you can dance right now. And I'll tell Eric, you can dance right now, because your uncle ain't in that tomb no more. He's still living. That William ain't in the tomb no more. He's still living. That my dad is not in the tomb anymore. My mom is not in the tomb. They're still living. That our dads and our moms and our loved ones are still living. They're not there anymore. And only God can turn your wailing into dancing. Even if you dance all by yourself. Because we dance knowing that God is restoring. We dance knowing that God is rebalancing. We dance knowing that order and balance will come out of the chaos. Comes out of the chaos that we're experiencing right now. So we dance. We dance. And I dance. I dance every day, knowing that my liberation has come from my willingness to surrender to the space that my beloved holds for me here in Atlanta, Georgia, in this space. That my liberation comes from heeding the wisdom, heeding the lived experiences of the women that have gone before me, of the women that are here now. And so I honor, I celebrate, and I give glory to what they're doing this for me 15 months. Fam, let's keep dancing. Whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever we feel, let's just keep dancing. Because every morning, God will renew his mercies and turn your wailing into dancing. So fam, let's keep dancing. Amen. I say, and so it is, man. So it is, man. Let's come back to the middle, man. And let's not allow ourselves to be fooled by any extremes. Not allow our emotions to take us one way or the other. Let's always endeavor to come back to the middle. Come back to the middle. And then this time, at this time, is my sister who can do it. Thank you, TLC. Listen, if you receive anything from TLC, I mean, this word that we give, where we give from the heart and we transform through love, I mean, we do it. We don't talk it, we walk the walk. If your life has been changed, affected, if you appreciate this message, the message next week, and all the messages and the growth that you've experienced, please contribute to this ministry. Contribute to this ministry. You see the ways, you see there's Givelify, there's CashApp. You can go to the website and contribute. Give to this ministry so we can continue to give. Good measure, pressed down and shaken, will return to you tenfold. Tenfold. And what you give to yourself. There's a reciprocal principle there. But then no matter how much, right? Let your intuition determine your fruition to this ministry. Thank you for that. Fam, I just love you. I honor you. It's always a blessing to come and share anything with you and share from my own lived experience and my own truth, which I'm being immersed in day by day, more deeply day by day. And so I just appreciate you being here, listening and sharing with me and being in community with me. And so I just want to bless you as we head out on this Sunday. The sun is coming out here after a storm, and I hope the same for wherever you are. And I just want to affirm right now the prayer of protection, that the light of God surrounds you. Wherever you are, the love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. That wherever you are physically, wherever you are consciously, God is, and all is well. Go your way dancing, and go your way rejoicing.